Hey, in today's video, I'm going to do something totally different for my channel. I'm going to do a reaction video to another drywall video. This is a video that has over 8 million views, and I'm just going to give you my opinion on it and share some pointers about it right after this. Hey, thanks for stopping by my channel here at that Kilted Guy Videos. I hope you'll become a subscriber and help me hit that 100,000 subscriber mark by June 10th. And you can guess what day that might be. Well, it's my birthday. I'll be 60 years old on that date. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to do a reaction video to another YouTube video out there that has been really popular for some reason, and it's a drywall video where they show how to tape and finish. Okay, and this video has over 18 million views. It's just gone crazy for some reason, and so I'm gonna go through and show you my reaction to the video. Now let me point out that my intention of doing these videos is not to put anyone down, to criticize anyone, make anyone feel bad or anything like that. Because even if you do any of the things I point out, we all got to start somewhere. I just happen to have been doing it since 50 years ago when I was 8 years old. I've got over 35 years of actual hands-on experience doing drywall, especially drywall repairs, for the past 17 years. So I'm just going to give you my insight on what he does. I'll give you some pointers on how I would do it differently and why, and I'll point out anything that I think is good or bad, and we'll just talk about it and go from there. So I'm putting these videos out to help you understand what you're seeing in some of the other videos, and there are some videos out there that I think are terrible and they're misleading, and I'm going to point that out on some of these videos because I don't want you guys getting misled and doing it the wrong way. So let's start that video now.
Hello, this is Ryan Voorhees, instructor with the Construction Technology Department at Ivytech Community College, and today I'm going to demonstrate the proper methods for taping and finishing a standard tapered drywall joint. For an example, we're going to use a standard tapered drywall joint.
Okay, first thing I want to do is point out, I find this really odd that this is an Ivytech school and they appear to be in the basement with a really lousy setup for a school. Sure, he's going to be able to demonstrate it. And I also wonder why, this does not look like a school stairway. So why are they doing this in the basement? That's the first odd thing about this.
And I'm going to go through some of the tools that we'll use to complete this process. The first tool that we plan on using is a 6-inch taping knife. And this knife is used to apply mud and remove that mud from the tape in the first step.
Okay, that's a good choice right there, except that's an odd shape for a 6-inch knife. Most drywallers out there that I've seen, not to say that all of them, use a knife that looks more like this. And there's a reason for it. It has a really good feel to it, and the shape is conducive to taping and finishing corners, inside corners, and a lot more. But that knife would work.
The second knife we're going to use is an 8-inch finishing knife. All of these knives are very stiff and sharp to allow for a very clean edge.
That's a good knife.
And the final knife that we'll use is a 12-inch finishing knife. Again, a very stiff, strong, sharp knife.
And it's another good choice.
You'll notice I'm holding a drywall pan. This is to hold my mud as I'm working through the process.
And notice that that is a TIG or heliarc, I think they call it, welded pan, meaning those corners are welded smooth. There's no seam, so that's actually a top quality pan. If you're going to get one, don't get the one with a folded over seam, and avoid the plastic unless you're just really on a tight budget.
Yes. It has sharp edges for cleaning off my knife. In addition, as far as tools are concerned, when we're done and we're ready to sand, we will use either a sponge to wet sand.
And that's iffy. I'll explain
or
why.
a drywall sanding pole with an open face paper to dry sand.
Now that's the most common method that we sand with, is a sanding pole, although a lot of guys these days are going to the radius sander, and the radius sander is much better for you guys. That type of sander right there will flip over really easy and mar your wall. Plus, I've gone away from using the open mesh, as he calls it, sandpaper, because of the design. It's in lines that go up and down and straight across, so when you're sanding it tends to groove little lines everywhere, whereas sandpaper has thousands of little granules. You get a smoother finish. So that method there does work, but it will show more sanding scratches.
So I'm going to start off with step number one, and step number one is to apply a 5-inch wide layer of mud to the joint, fairly thick, about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then I'm going to apply standard paper drywall tape to that joint. This paper tape is pre-creased, so if I was doing an inside corner, I could crease this by hand and apply it to the joint, but we're doing a flat joint, so I'm not going to crease this tape. Now with paper tape, I have two options. I can apply this tape directly to the compound, or I can pre-wet the tape in a bucket of water and smooth it out and apply it. And I'm going, for this demonstration, I'm going to apply this tape wet.
Okay, and I've seen this mentioned on a video or two, and it's pretty odd. I've never seen a drywaller do this, and it's because it's not really necessary. Now, I think the reason that some people do it is because by wetting the tape, you kind of pre-stretch it. When you embed the dry tape into the wet joint compound, it absorbs moisture, and if you let it sit too long and you go to wipe it down, you can get wrinkles in it. Other than that, there's no real benefit, and it's a huge hassle to try and wet it and deal with it that way. It works a lot better dry, but you can do it either way, but you'll be fine, just fine doing it dry.
So to start off, I have my joint, all the drywall is done and ready. I have an empty pan and a 6-inch taping knife. This is a stiff knife, very sharp. So I have pre-mixed drywall compound here. You can also mix your own compound, but I chose to use pre-mixed for simplicity. And I'm going to load my pan up with mud. Keeping a clean knife as I go. Now, as you can see, I have about, maybe a cup of nice compound here. This compound is about the consistency of peanut butter, which is about what I want for taping.
Okay, first of all, he didn't really mention what type of joint compound. There's dozens of them out there. There's regular all-purpose, lightweight, super lightweight, topping, and so on. What you want to use for taping is the regular weight all-purpose, and the reason is it has more adhesive in it, and it's actually a little stronger than the lightweight mud. You don't want to use lightweight. And the other thing is, you want to mix that mud up before you get it out of the bucket. It tends to kind of settle and break up in the bucket. If you don't mix it, it will work a lot harder, feels a lot worse. I've got videos on how to do that. A cheap way would be to throw your mud in the pan if you're just doing a little bit, and use an egg beater and a drill. I've showed you that, how to mix hot mud that way. You could do it that way, but if you're going to do very much, get yourself a heavy duty drill. A lightweight one will burn up, a cordless one will burn up, and a mixing paddle. You can get one as cheap as this, or the next step up would be this one, but my favorite is this 4-bladed one like this, because it mixes faster and it doesn't shake the bucket. The 2-bladed ones tend to shake the heck out of the bucket. The 4-blade won't. It does cost a lot more each step up though. By mixing it up, you're going to end up with a nice creamy, smooth mixture that works a lot better. And if you use the regular weight all-purpose, it's usually good to go right out of the bucket after you've mixed it with no water added. If it feels too thick and is just really fighting you, you can add a little bit of water, but don't over thin it, or it's just going to drip all over and it won't adhere as well.
And I keep it all on one side of my pan, so I have a clean side, so I can always keep a clean knife. So I'm going to leave my knife here and get my compound out of the way.
I don't really worry about that, keeping it to one
And for
side.
this step, I'm just going to dig into my compound. And I have a knife full of compound, and I want to apply about 5 inches. My knife is 6 inches, so if I applied it straight on, I would have too wide. So I'm going to choose to apply my mud more vertically across that joint so I can keep the mud right in the center of that joint.
Okay, now this, the way he's spreading it here, will certainly work, and if that's what works for you, go ahead. But if you're going to do very much of this, there's a lot faster way to do it. I show that in some of my videos, like my how to tape drywall video. This tells me that if they hired this guy as an instructor, they appear to me to have hired a novice that has some basic skills and he does it right. But if you're going to be an instructor, you really ought to be a journeyman drywaller. The way he's doing it here, like I say, it'll work, but this shows me that he's probably a novice.
And again, I'm applying this mud fairly thick.
Pretty much guaranteed.
And I'm going to take and actually strike that mud off with very little pressure. I'm just trying to spread it out evenly.
Now the other way you can control how much you wipe off that he's not explaining is the more you lean your knife over closer to the wall and you push a little harder, you'll actually take off less mud. The more you stand it up, the more you'll take off. That's the better way to control it because you'll get a nice smooth bed of mud there instead.
Across this joint. And then add the areas where you're not quite 5 inches. I have a few low spots here.
Doesn't really have to go 5 inches wide, but you do want to put plenty of mud on. The big
Again,
mistake
as I work here,
is
I
not
keep my
putting
knife clean
enough mud on.
and only cut off what I need. If I allow mud to stay on the knife, it will dry and it will create issues later on.
Okay, that point is basically true. You don't want to let the mud dry on the other parts of the blade and not in any thickness. If it's a thin layer, it ain't going to get you, but when you let chunks start setting up a little bit, they'll get back into your mud, cause scratches and issues.
So this is adequate for this particular joint here. So at this point I'm ready to get my tape. So I'm going to take my tape, hold it at one end of my joint, and estimate the length of that tape. And just take my fingers and tear this tape like so. Now again, I could apply this dry straight to the joint, but I choose to apply it wet, especially in a dry atmosphere. It helps that tape to adhere to the compound much better. So I take that tape, wet it, and wring it out.
In 35 years, I've never had a problem with adhesion if
It's
you
ready
do
to
it
put on the
right.
wall. So I'm going to center this tape on the joint and give just enough pressure to get it to stick. I'm not going to push it in there with my fingers. At this point I take a clean knife and I'm going to hold one end of this tape, because if I was just to start, I'd pull the tape off the wall. So holding one end and always starting at the center, apply very firm pressure at about a 45-degree angle and embed that tape into the compound. Now that it's stuck, I don't have to hold the other side, so I'm going to start in the middle, 45-degree angle, and pull that knife across to embed the tape and take my excess back to the pan. So the tape's stuck. I'm going to do this one more time from the center always. We work from the center because if we started on one end, we could create a bubble that gets stuck in the center. So we want to start in the center and work away to eliminate opportunities for bubbles.
It's more like a wrinkle in the tape than a bubble, but
And there we have a properly embedded first layer of mud with tape, and at this point we will let this mud and tape dry overnight.
Okay, I'm going to show you how I would do this taping and how I would teach it. I'm going to do it real quickly. I'm not going to go over all the mud and everything. This is regular all-purpose. Yes, it is about that peanut butter thickness, slightly thinned down, nice and creamy, and we have our paper joint tape. So instead of the method of doing this, which like I say, if that's all you can do, that's fine, it'll work. But if you want to get faster at this, learn to get a decent load on here. You put your knife on the wall at an angle, and then as you go up the wall, you lean it over. So I'm going to show you how I do that fast and then a little bit slower. So we just did it like that, and then just come back over it, and got a lump right there. You lay your knife down, and you can push fairly hard, and it just leaves a nice flat even bead. You don't have to do all that striking it off and everything. That's the novice amateur way. So again, get a nice coat of mud on here, put it on here, and just start leaning it over as you go up. And then come back and lay your knife down pretty good, because if you stand it up very much, you just wipe it all off. So lay it down to where your knuckles almost drag in the mud, push, come down, and there you go. That little scratch, that wouldn't really even matter too much, but I'm going to go ahead just to make sure it didn't get too dry there. Then just put your dry paper tape into the mud. You get to the end, you cut it off, wipe from the middle, and like I say, you don't really have to hold it unless it's really short, but you can if it starts moving, and I usually just hold it like that, the corner of my pen. And if you want to check your work to see if you're doing it right, try it, peel it up. If you see a decent amount of mud like that, you see how it's kind of got those wavy lines in it on both sides. That's a decent amount. Now if I wipe it too firmly, I've used too thin of a mud, and then I do this, you peel it up, and there's barely any of those lines on here. See, I wiped out most of the mud. That's not going to stick real well. There you go. That's a simple version. Otherwise, you know, he ends up with a good result here. There's just a lot of pointers that could have been given, and I still don't get why it's got 18 million views. It's one of them YouTube algorithm things. So let's drive mine to 18 million and we'll see what happens. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and do a reaction video to his follow-up series. They do show you how to coat it and all, and I'll tell you again the pros, the cons, and the pointers along the way. So if you like this kind of stuff, be sure and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. YouTube will show my videos more the more people that subscribe, plus you'll get me to that 100,000 subscriber mark faster. As of today, we're at like 65,000. And give us a thumbs up, comment, that helps YouTube show our videos more. And other than that, hang around, wait, and I'll put out another video, and I'll see you on that next video. So take care, everybody. I'll see you then.